Before I get to what an aggravated assault is, let me tell you what regular assault is. A regular assault in the state of Florida is a misdemeanor offense. It's a second-degree misdemeanor punishable by up to 60 days in jail. So it's, relatively speaking, a minor offense. An assault, unlike a battery, is a threat to do harm, an intentional threat to do harm on somebody with the present ability to do that. Meaning, it's one thing to say, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to beat you up in a week. That's not present intent, or it doesn't show that you're going to do anything right now. But if you make a threat to do harm on somebody, that is considered an assault. It becomes an aggravated assault if, in the process of the threat, you use a firearm or a deadly weapon, or if you knew or should have known that the person that you're threatening is a pregnant person. So the important part when we're talking about aggravated assault and we're talking about weapons is that even though it goes from, even though it starts as a misdemeanor, it goes to a felony if you threaten somebody with a deadly weapon or a gun. Specifically, when we're talking about firearms, and I talk about this in other parts of my website, if you use a firearm in the course of an aggravated assault, you are faced with a 3-year minimum mandatory in prison. That means if you wave a gun at somebody and threaten them, even though you don't think it's a big deal, you're looking at 3 years in prison right off the bat. Again, it doesn't matter if the judge doesn't think that you're a bad person or that you don't have a bad record. Even if you have no record, you're looking at 3 years in prison if you're convicted of that offense. There are other related offenses, and sometimes people ask me what's the difference between an aggravated assault and an aggravated battery. An assault is always just going to be a threat to do harm. A battery is an actual touching, unwanted touching. So if somebody comes up and just pushes you and you didn't want them to do that, or you didn't give them permission to do that, that's considered a misdemeanor battery. If in the process of pushing somebody or in the process of committing a battery, you cause great bodily harm or permanent physical injury, then that elevates the misdemeanor battery charge up to a second-degree felony. If in the process of committing an aggravated battery you use a firearm, back to the minimum mandatories that we talked about earlier, at least a 3-year minimum mandatory, or there's a possibility you'd be looking at a 10-year minimum mandatory. Bottom line is, in the state of Florida, anytime you involve firearms in any felony offense, you go from possibly very low penalties to no incarceration, straight up to these minimum mandatories. Could be 3 years if it's just an assault, could be 10 years or worse, depending on the facts.